Hi, I'm Diana.
And I'm Sabrina.
And we're here to talk D&D.
But this time we're going to be talking about new time GMs and what you need to know.
Advice to starting GMs.
Mm-hmm.
Having played for 40-something years, 40 years, at D&D, and being the DM straight from the start, I have lots of advice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm full of talking.
We're full of information. Whether it's good or not, that's up to you.
That's up to you. Take what you need, which is the real name of the game, and
That's
use what you take.
That's the trick. That's the kicker. That's the thing to do it.
That's the way.
Mm-hmm.
So, the first thing that a GM needs are players.
Okay. Before we get into that,
Okay.
GM, what does that mean?
GM means Game Master. Back in the early days, it was DM, Dungeon Master. But that has a whole other kind of connotation these days. So, yeah. So you say Game Master. For that matter, there are a lot more types of games out there than there.
It's true. Not just not every game takes place in a dungeon.
Right. So, the idea is it's a Game Master. You are in charge. You are God. You are the person running the whole show.
You're the narrator of the story.
That's right.
And that's a great way to think about it.
Yes. You're writing a story. You are the DM. You're writing a story. They, the players, are the heroes. And they have their own ideas and their own way of doing things. But you are all the obstacles, the monsters, the treasure, and any other little plot design and surprises that you can be. You are obstacles to be figured out. You are clues to be followed. You are not the enemy.
You're the supporting cast.
You are the world upon which they play. The joy is that as a GM, you're trying to encourage them into a certain heroic nature. Or if you're running one of those dark campaigns, you can, get them all to be dark and brooding. You can either tell them starting right away, we're doing a horror thing. Or you can encourage them with rewards or enthusiasm to show what sorts of things we want to do, the DM and the players with the game.
Okay, before we do anything, I gotta make sure we're still recording.
Excellent.
We'll have to edit this out eventually, but...
Oh, well, now I'll have Jondari and Camarcus. We love each other.
Okay, we're still good.
Oh, okay.
I'm just double checking the button ran off and now it's...
Now I'm embarrassed. Well, I suppose not.
We can edit that out.
Edit it out later. Yeah. So, advice to starting DMs. You're gonna need players.
That's the first step, obviously.
Now, it's easy to find players these days. You can put up a sign at your local gaming store. You can drop something on Twitch saying, I'm starting a game.
Go to a convention.
You go to a convention. In fact, you can sign up at conventions that you're running this game, and players will sign up for your game, especially, like Gen Con or any of the gaming cons. And you sign up.
Sci-fi and fantasy cons most prevalent. You can try at maybe some comic cons or anime cons if you're feeling spicy, but the most likely you're going to find them is at specifically science fiction cons.
And usually somebody will say, there's gaming. You can usually look on their website. There's gaming. And then you jot a note down to the person running the game. Now, don't just say, it's a dungeon for players level 3 to 7. You could say, it is the evil depths of the dark cave of the demonic power. Satan's heart. Flavors. Because if you want somebody to really be interested, you don't just say, hey, this guy Robnik. No, you have to talk about, it's adjectives. It's all adjectives.
Hooking your players in. What are they going to experience?
Right. So you need players. And if all else fails, you can find them at cons. You can often set up in little places. And as I say, a lot of players are looking for a good and steady game. What else do you need? You need to figure out
Well, you need to know what is going to happen in the game.
Well, let's start with you need a place to play, sometimes a gaming store.
Oh, like location of wherever you want to be.
Right. You need to figure out what kind of game you're going to be running.
Like, for instance, you have a tabletop game, which is like this. This is a tabletop. That's what the tabletop means.
People come to my basement.
And you can either have little notes that you have on papers, or you have little fill-out forms. There's a really easy form to find online of like character sheets. You can make up your own character sheet, but there's already so many pre-built character sheets that you just hang out to your players and be like, okay, let's roll up some characters like this.
Right.
But if you're feeling spicy, you can try it a different way. But this one is a very easy thing to do.
Simple. So you need...
And then you figure out, again, if you're doing it tabletop, so you do it in person with real paper, or you do it online, either through Discord. I know there's this one site online that I played with once.
Cool.
That is a very dedicated game for playing Dungeons & Dragons and Pathfinder and all that jazz. I find it horrifically complicated. And I got very easily lost the one time I got to play with it.
Okay, and I have players whose GM is in South Carolina, and they're in Colorado, and in Chicago, and here, there, everywhere, and they're dispersed because they used to be friends. They're still friends. They used to have a group that they got together with, and then they went places. And then I have friends who are like, we met at a con. We liked each other a lot. We started talking, and now we meet on Discord or Twitch or someplace. I have a friend who used to game with me, moved to Florida, can't find a game, and then he called me a Luddite, and I said, I will not set up a laptop, I will not Sam I am, and my gamer Gary said, I'll set it up, and I went, okay, because my friend was really desperate for a regular game, and my game is a good game. So, okay, we'll have a game at my house, and as long as Gary sets up the laptop. And then sometimes Scott would bring the laptop, or Bob would bring the laptop.
One way or another, there's a talking box. It is very hard to blend a digital and a tabletop game, but it is possible.
And I do it all the time.
There you go. But it's usually a good idea to figure out where everyone's going to meet up.
Yes.
I remember I once had a campaign that I played in the basement of my college, and we just took a random classroom that wasn't being used and we claimed it. And then sometimes a few other students would stick their head in and be like, what's going on? D&D! And they'd be like, okay.
All right. And either they go, ooh, I've got my dice in my car, or me in my purse. I got dice. I got an app. Or they'd be like, back away slowly.
There you go.
So, players...
Once you have a players and a place to go, the next thing you need is what to do.
It's an idea.
It's an idea. What is the main thing that they're going to try and do? And you can either have more ideas later on, and that's how you get a continuing story, or if it's a one-shot, you basically have the idea of, okay, we're going to fight the great beholder in this dungeon. Right. Or you start off with a dungeon and now your goal is to get out of this dungeon, and then you have this whole world to explore.
So what the terms that they use in the communities that I hang out in, there's sandbox and there's the campaign. A sandbox game is like what I run. Here's Dark Fun. What are we doing today? Same people, same NPCs, same pretty world.
Lots of those terms are also used in video games nowadays, so people know what those are.
Very good.
Yes.
I love sandboxes. Sandboxes are like, what are we doing tonight? And I'm like, well, I had a horrible dream about vampires, so we're killing vampires tonight.
You see that? What do you guys want to do? What do we see? You see a lake and you see a castle. We want to go to the castle. Okay, you go to the castle. That's what a sandbox is. Right. There's multiple directions. Or there's a campaign where it's more the linear storyline.
Right. So there was a great Dungeons & Dragons campaign about the rise of Tiamat, big evil D&D goddess dragon.
With 5 giant heads.
And it was, the cult was trying to do all these things to summon her. And you start as a little character, and you start encountering cult members, and then you went over here, and then this stuff was going on because they're trying to summon Tiamat. And you went, oh, and then you went over here and did some stuff. They're trying to summon Tiamat. And then you found out all of this. No, now it's so-and-so trying to summon Tiamat. And now this is the place they're going to be doing it at. And slowly, because you are a hero, you were involved in the situation and involved in all of the steps, and then you get to the point where they summon Tiamat. It's a really good book. I should drag it out and show it to you.
She has it after all.
And then you get up to the point where we have stopped the summoning of Tiamat, or maybe not, depending on how good you are. The players, that is, not you. You have a plan. You're the DM. You have a plan. But that's a campaign arc. You're done now. And now when you're done, depending on the gaming group, sometimes somebody else will say, now I have a game I'd like to run. Or you get together as a group and everybody pitches the new idea, which can also be you. You could say, well, you guys, Tiamat's summoned, and now we have this other thing where you need to try and get rid of her, and I'm going to make up this whole other thing. So campaign stories are great, and sandbox is wherever we're going, whatever we want to do. And there's railroading. I like railroading. My players love railroading. Railroading is, gee, Diana, what are we going to do tonight? And I say, there's little imps that are coming out of the teleportation gate. And they go, well, what if we don't want to do that? Then I say, then gaming's over. And actually, no, I actually have the automatic backup. Oh, we'll tell you about the automatic backup.
Well, not right now. But
not
first,
right now.
But the idea of that is basically, think of it as the filler arc in a story. Basically, the surprise thing that you do in the middle of everything. Sure, you're going to defeat the evil king over there, but right now, there's a problem with Old Man Jinx's garden. Old Man Jinx's garden? Oh, no! There you go.
So,
and there's no wrong with that.
What you're also doing with the Jinx's garden is you're making certain that your players are competent in the situation, they understand the world that you're playing them in, and they are high enough level to handle when Tiamat explodes out into the world.
Mm-hmm. It gives you world building, it gives you level experience, and it gives you practice and tactics. There are multiple ways to do that this would benefit your players.
Your players want their characters to be real to them. They want their characters to affect the game. So that if you are giving them that opportunity, they will love this game. They will cry when somebody dies. They will, talk to their friends later about, do you remember that game? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, it was so great. Remember when we did this, and remember when we found out this.
Sure, you can easily throw giant monsters at them all you want, but it's how you defeat them. Right. Or even when something little small of just like, we caught this fish, and we managed to make this fish last for an entire pirate's journey, and we harvested the scales and managed to trade the scales for something amazing. But now they always think back to that fish and say, wow, that was a lucky fish.
I like that. And it's amazing. I gave a player a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an unusual dog because, well, it's a D&D game. And the player's like, dogs like me. I'm taking the dog, because they encountered it. They rescued it from the bad people who were holding onto it. And he's like, dogs like me. And I'm like, yes, this dog likes you. And I'm going to keep this dog. Okay. And we ran an entire little thread about the dog. And indeed, the dog had puppies. And then suddenly I was throwing NPCs at him because there were these people that came and they wanted to adopt the puppies. And he had to make sure they were all going to a good home because he was a good dog owner. And it was just one of those, very nice. And you can do this with like Cerberus dogs and stuff like that. It's like, what the heck is that?
So you don't need to worry about big showpiecey things to make your characters engaged. What's engaging for your players is the moments in between everything.
Where they can put themselves into the game. And
which also ties back to the other idea. You don't have to have everything completely 100% thought out. That is a huge detriment that a lot of players, first-time DMs, make that mistake.
GMs make this mistake all the time, where they're like, I have to have the whole dungeon populated and ready, because otherwise they'll know that it's just a game, or it'll break them out of the game, or they'll know I'm a fraud. I didn't have time.
You're not a fraud. We promise you. You're not a fraud if suddenly they find a niche in the system.
In my old dungeon, when we ran dungeons, there were times that my players, exploring all the maps and everything, they'd get to a certain part and I'd say, and there's a big orange cone with yellow tape that says, the DM hasn't finished this part yet, go somewhere else. And they go, let's go this way.
There you go.
Because they live the same life we do. They were at the same party. They, had jobs just like you do.
Life happens.
Life happens.
Knowing that you will try to plan for path A, path B, path C. They will pick path X and not even bother with anything else.
What's worse is you plan for A, B, and C, and they do Sigma,
Sigma 13.
Sigma do re mi, It's like, what? Where have you gone? Why have you gone in this? No, it's okay.
It's okay.
You're the GM. Smile and handle it.
One of the best things, if you really want to try and get the hand of this, improv lessons and other stuff. I know it's theater talk, but being able to think on your head in these weird scenarios is the best way to make the funniest campaigns.
Yes.
It's funniest
true.
and best campaigns.
If you're looking for advice about how to make your game better, bring energy and improv. Because they're going to go in a direction that makes you go, and sometimes you can rely on the idea of this is supposed to be serious. So if they're going to go over here, it's going to be serious. Well, they're being funny.
Mm-hmm.
If everybody at the table is being funny, well, you can turn serious into funny pretty quickly with a banana peel.
It's true.
You should pay attention to what it is everybody at the table wants or needs.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about it. If you're planning something serious, the players sometimes sit down and go, oh, the DM wants us to be serious.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. I've always wanted to be serious.
Let's be serious.
Let's be serious tonight. There were times that I was like, my poor friend Don, one of my older players, and I'd be like, this is going wrong. And he'd go, oh. And I'd think to myself, oh, he wasn't startled by that. Well, on top of this going wrong, there's also this going wrong. And he'd go, oh. And by the time I piled up 6 huge things that were going wrong, he'd finally start to look a little nervous. And I began to realize, oh, he's thinking and he's not showing me his emotions. So for me, I'm like, I have now squashed him with way too many things. And I'd have to peel them off. And that's bad.
Not every player is going to react the same. All.
Know your players, know your player types.
It's true. What are the player types?
There is the rules lawyer. He's the guy that has read the books and he knows all the rules, and he will tell you that you are not running this magic spell right.
Mm-hmm. But you're the GM. He can suck in an egg.
You could say, in this area, that doesn't work because there is an evil god that is, and you don't even have to explain it. And later you could say, oh, well, of course you can't do that. There's an evil god that does that.
Yeah. No matter who this person is, they don't make the rules. You do. So if you suddenly say that mermaids can fly in the air, they fly in the air now.
I find it fascinating when people are like, but no, this is the way my world works. In my world, my people look at the rules, they say, but this is the way this is supposed to work. And I go, we don't use that rule at this table. And as long as you are consistent. Now, if you're having a hard time being consistent, write it down.
Yes.
Or at least have some player on the table that doesn't mind writing it down. My friend Colin, who surprised me when he came back from Florida. Well, he's not back, but anyway, when he came back
to the game.
Still in Florida, he keeps records. He types everything up so that I don't have to worry about it. I have my ideas. I have a book. Yes, I know. I write everything down. And in my book, I have adventures, and I have templates, which we will talk about later. And I have ideas in the back.
Which have been collected for over years, after all.
And I have ideas.
Don't be scared if you don't have all of this immediately. This is over years and years of collection.
But you can write down to this, in this circumstance, works this way. And that way you're building your own, if you need to. If you just remember these things, go for it. And if you're quick-witted and you don't remember because it was late on a Sunday and now it's Tuesday and I totally forgot what I said, you don't have a player to write it down, then you just say, it doesn't work that way now.
moral of the
Players
story.
will forgive you because there's a game going on, and
It's true.
they want consistency, but you're the GM.
You're the GM.
You're the one making up the stories. If you have a corridor and you've planned this whole thing on the right, because why would they go left? And then they go left. Oops, right, left, right. If you've got all this stuff planned over here, why would they go over there? And then they go over there.
Now
And
you
you're
gotta
like-
think about things to do over there.
Then sometimes what you could do is you could just take everything that you planned over here and flop it.
That's what you do when you keep on your toes.
It's a pancake flip.
Yeah.
So that rather than, well, see, the whole adventure was planned out. They go, wow, we went over here and we found all this stuff that originally you put over here.
If you manage to do this, even if it's on the seat of your toes and you have no idea what it's doing, if you play it right, your players will think you've planned it the entire time.
Okay, what other kind? This is the
Okay.
rules lawyer.
There's also the Midmaxer.
Yes. Oh my God, tell them.
The Midmaxer is a character that plays it more like they would a shooter video game,
Yes.
and they're worried about numbers. They're worried about getting the best attacks and the best defense in the best ways possible. They're not really there for the role-playing aspect. They're there to max out their numbers in the most minimal way possible. Mid-maxers.
Max. They're the ones that show up with 2 or 3 pages worth of character notes, and none of the notes say he was married to this person or his father died or anything of the sort. What they've got is, I'm looking for this kind of weapon when I reach this level so that I can do these things. They've gone
If I
through
manage to level up in this precise way, I can gain these 3 spells in order to make sure I can get this item from over here.
right. And they have a plan for their character. Now they're having fun.
They're having fun. There's
Because-
nothing wrong with mid-maxers.
And they are often the people who are like, I am the tank of the party, because they've planned everything in advance. And they're like, I know what this character can do. He can hit 3 times. I took a multiple armed character, so he's got, an extra strike going on because he's got multiple arms, or she.
Either way.
And then you've got somebody who is saving your ass when you're like, oh my God, I need extra, help me.
To play with these characters,
Players.
and players, keep in mind that they will be min-maxing your game, so you have to balance and min-max back at them.
And you're allowed to ask them questions. What are you headed for? As a player, I would like you to be happy with the game. If you're looking for this, great. If you're not, okay, I need room to flex here. You got the role player. I like the role players.
Role players, yep. Although role players often will start writing entire chapters of their characters saying, I was born as a young child and I was abandoned by royalty, but
then
I was
the
found as fairies. And
The wolves found me, and then
sometimes these guys can go a little crazy with their backstories.
yes,
But
and
there's nothing wrong with that.
No, and backstories are the best place to find interesting things to make them go, oh, she read my backstory and she knows that I hate bugs. Ah, more spiders.
That's how you get good with the role players.
Right.
You role play back with them.
But role players also are in the game. I have a rules guy and I got a tank guy, and attempting to get them to role play. Every once in a while, I poke them because it's part of the game. Just like I poke my role player. I go, you got to add that up.
It's true. All art, no numbers. All numbers, no art.
So it's just a matter of providing that format. Now, if you're looking for ideas for how to make a game arc, you should pick a time frame. I always have one big arc that tends to hit around New Year's. All my players are like, oh yeah, it's right at the end of the year when things get cold and nasty. And how long you want to sit it. I mean, is this a 2 or 3 month thing? Is this over the summer we did this game? Is this going to be, I started and I've planted the seeds 3 years from now? No, now you're too detailed. Because again, players are going to go off into Sigma 5 and you were planning on ABC.
It's true.
So where do you get these ideas?
Around.
Pick up extra supplements, other games. I found this really cool game that was off a Kickstarter. And it was Empire of the Ghouls. I haven't used it yet, but I'm like, this is perfect. It's Underdark, so it's in the cave systems. You got the drow. I love the drow. But the undead are down there, and there's no sunshine and there's ooh, this is really cool. I haven't used it yet because I have to pick it apart to fit in my game. But you can pick up a supplement and run a supplement. You can find game elements that you like in supplements. There's a lot of them out there. Read a book, which is something that we don't, I'm not trying to be mean. Read a book. There's lots of stories.
Engulf yourself in a story.
Right.
I remember I planned a whole dungeon based off of a piece of fan art I saw one time.
Yes.
And I made a beautiful, loving dungeon with a giant statue with 4 arms and kappas everywhere. It was a very beloved dungeon that I really remember fondly, but I made it because of this piece of fan art that I saw.
And sometimes you can buy prints of the fan art or download it or something and go, look, this is what you see. And everybody goes, oh, I love that picture.
There are plenty of places that you could find inspiration for what to do in your campaign.
And it's got to appeal to you most of all. You're the DM.
That's true.
The players will tend to go along with it and then try and flavor it their own way. You know, oh, and now the clown car comes in.
Ah!
And the DM will be like, and the clown car blows up over there. Now let's get back to the horror.
Yes.
Or whatever it is you're doing.
And then there's the idea of NPCs.
Yes.
There is a possibility that an NPC that you love and put a lot of effort into will die because of your your players' meddlings.
Don't be afraid to let people die.
Don't be afraid.
There's going to be a few people that are like, no, this guy's a little unkillable. He's over your level. By the time you get up there, he'll either, you know, be moved on or he'll be somebody you want to be friends with, hopefully. But yeah.
And this also leads into another mistake for DMs that I see. Treating your D&D world as an excuse to show off your characters.
Oh, don't.
Sure, you can have beloved characters, but like, your players are the ones who need to be the stars of the show.
I like to write stories. I got a whole bunch of stories for my game. I like to write stories. Stories are the setting and opening for the heroes to be the players to be the heroes, the characters. I'll write a story sometimes that is just for me. My players know that I have these NPCs that are, you know, those are Diana's characters. The joy of having your own characters in your game means that you too enjoy the game. Oh, look, there's my character. Oh my gosh. There's Arctheon. Oh, hooray, Arctheon got into the game. Arctheon! And they fed him and he was a happy guy. And that makes me happy. And they know that makes me happy. And they're not out to kill Arctheon or anything like that. But there's that point where it's like, no, it's not all about Arctheon, but I do still want to put my guys in as well, because that's what it's a soup for everybody.
Yes, and it's an every person soup.
Don't be afraid. It looks like it's overwhelming. It can be overwhelming because you're trying to make everybody happy. You're trying to put everything down on paper. Who's got stats? Where are they supposed to go? A map, which you don't even need because sometimes maps are, you can download maps off the internet if you're using minis. I don't use minis. We just all talk about it. Or you could just say, and further on, there is this description, props, whatever. Don't worry.
Do not worry.
It's everybody here. Everybody's like, I'll mess it up. You can't mess it up. It might not be a successful game. I've had a number of games that was like, well, that fell flat. I had a cool idea, but did not express it well enough.
But that's okay.
Is that going to drive me into sadness? No, I didn't do it well enough this time.
Because there will always be another time and another campaign that you can try again.
And when you're a new GM, the players will understand that. And unless they're horrible, terrible people who are trying to drive your life into misery, and then don't play with those guys anymore. Because they're all assholes.
With the world, how Dungeons and Dragons interacts, there is literally no way that you can make a wrong turn. as we mentioned before, as we're wrapping things up, the best thing you can do to be a DM is have a basic idea of where you want to go, have a place where everybody can gather to, and being able to think on your toes. And everything else is optional.
Be regular about it.
Regular.
But that's part of having a place where everybody meets.
Exactly. You got a time and a place, a plan, and you can think on your toes. And that's all you need.
And don't be frightened about it. It's awkward when everybody's looking at you, but everybody's looking, and I'm having everybody have a good time, and I know when to shut up and let them play, and they know when to shut up and let me get them into the world, the situation, what's going on.
You're all working together to make this one story.
You can do it too. You don't have to be, an expert when you're starting. Everybody understands.
Everybody understands.
Come on and play. Have your own world. Be your own god.
Give it a shot. That's the best thing you can do. You can learn on the way. Just give it a shot.
Sure. Write us. We'd be glad to answer questions.
Absolutely. We could make a part 2 about this and more questions that we've taken. But I think that will be the end of the episode for today.
We're trying not to go too long.
Too long, at least. So, my name's Sabrina.
And my name's Diana.
And we've just talked about D&D.
D&D.